right, so we are recording, so I'll be able to post this up on YouTube for people that were not able to make it but may have questions that they'd like to see answered. I did not receive any kind of pre-questions for this session, but I know that there's a lot of stuff kind of going on with acquisitions right now, so I'm hoping that some of you maybe came with some questions or some things you're running into. And I definitely invite any input in the direction that this meeting goes. I've got a couple of things that I will happily go through, but I'd like to kind of open the floor. So maybe before I do that, if anyone is willing to unmute yourself and just maybe say a little bit about what you do with acquisitions, that might help us to direct the conversation a little bit. Or feel free to put it in chat as well. Don't everybody just unmute at once. Um, I know that's can feel a little bit.
Hopefully, I'm working from home, so the German Shepherds don't bark too much. I am April Berry. I am with Ingrown Content Group. Samantha was lovely enough to let me join and sit in to kind of help some of the customers. So I am one of the senior systems integration specialists.
And we're very happy to have you here, April. I'm glad that you were interested in coming and were able to make it because, I was saying earlier today that one of the issues that I find the hardest to kind of untangle when it comes to acquisitions is anything that kind of brings the vendor accounts into it because I just don't have access to that end of the system. So
And
I'm
we don't
very
have
glad you're here.
access to your end of the system. So
Yeah, we're
it takes
both.
a village.
It really does. And I've got some questions for you actually. So if nothing else,
Yay.
we can we can go through that stuff. Um, so thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Um, looks like we have a pretty big group today. Is anybody else willing to introduce themselves? Say a little bit about your experience with acquisitions. If not, we can just jump right in. All right, I'll take that as a no, but feel free to put anything in chat if you'd like to. So I would love to just kind of like see what questions everybody here has, if anybody is dealing with anything in particular. But while you kind of think on that, I'll start with a question of my own, which is that, we're now almost a month into the new fiscal year. And so I wanted to see if everybody was able to complete their fiscal year closeout, if anybody ran into any issues or questions that they still kind of have lingering, or everything seems to have worked, but they're not sure exactly what happened and they'd like to have a little bit of a closer look at that process. Any lingering issues with this year's closeout? All right. Well, hopefully that means it went really well for everybody. Um, then I guess one of the things that I kind of was hoping we might kind of look at today is some stuff with EDI because we've had a couple of weird issues come up with EDI over the last few months. And so I kind of thought maybe as a group we might be able to work out a little bit about what's happening. So one of the things that I'm having is that, or that I've kind of seen some libraries having, is with the new invoices. So in our last upgrade, which we did last November, we changed the way that the invoices work, and there have been a couple of different issues that have come up. So I kind of thought I might talk about a few of those issues, and if you are seeing those, feel free to chime in if you have developed workarounds within your library for them, feel free to share those. I'll certainly talk a little bit about some of the things that we've figured out on our end. So one of the things that happens with new invoices is that it is possible to basically um, duplicate line items. And when you do that, because Evergreen does not actually allow you to have duplicate line items, they don't both show up, but it reads it as though there are two. And this is one of the things that causes there to be imbalances. So if any of you have seen within your invoices that the balance owed does not match, if you add up the amount owed for each line item, that's not the only culprit behind that issue coming up, but that is one of the culprits. I'm not sure if this is something that I can replicate live, but we can give it a shot. So I'm going to create an invoice in here. I'm just going to call it a test. I'll call it test 7 or test 8. There we go. And since we've got Ingram here, I'll make it an Ingram invoice. Let's make this Cumberland, since that is who we have, the provider that we're going to use here. All right. So if I come down here and I let's just add a couple of items to my invoice. So if I have an item on my invoice, currently, oh, this was over, I didn't think that it would receive something. Just add a couple. All right, so if I've got a couple of items on my invoice, so for example, you can see here that the amount paid, it's already been paid, even though it's on order. Up here, it's not going into any of my balance owed stuff. And so we're having a lot of different kind of bugs with how invoices are recognizing amounts. So one of the things I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and close the invoice. And so what you'll see up here is that in closing the invoice, even though everything here is listed as paid, my total billed, my total paid are two different numbers and they don't add up to the full amount here. And so that's one of the things that's happening is that when items are added either through a duplication process, that duplication is not showing up correctly within the invoice itself, or if they're being added in a state that shouldn't be invoiced, such as this one here, it's not matching this amount here. And one of the ways that you can get around this, and this does not work every time, is if you can go into the legacy view of the invoice, and that's a little tricky. So I'm going to walk you through the process of doing it because it's not necessarily something that that should be easy to do. See, it looks like part of the problem here is probably because we are on a closed fund. Let's take a look at. All right. So I'm going to leave this up and I'm going to just come into a new tab and I'm going to go into my acquisitions administration and I'm going to go into fund administration. So I'll find my Cumberland funds and we're going to go all the way back. This looks like it was a 2014 fund. Let's see, this fund was named APHPM. Okay. So I believe the problem might be because of the fact that this fund is so old, which, is not necessarily one that you're going to run into, but the result is kind of the same, is that you're getting that unbalanced invoice. The way that you can get into the legacy view of the invoice is if you come into the fund and you go into the debits tab. Um, Let me try something newer because this is um and you click on the hyperlinked invoice. So you'll want to find the correct debit amount over you can look at the amount section, and you want to make sure that the invoice numbers and purchase orders match. The line item number actually is useful as well for figuring out that you're looking at the correct thing. But the most important thing is that you find the correct invoice and you click on that, and that's going to reopen the invoice for you in this legacy view. And when you're in the legacy view, any changes that you make in here will generally fix that unbalanced issue. So you would reopen the invoice, um, you would make whatever changes you need to, and then you would save and close it again. And then when you go back into the current view of the invoice, usually that's going to fix that unbalance. Now, it doesn't happen every time. It depends on what caused the unbalance to happen. But if the unbalance happened because of a duplication or something like that, this is gonna fix that, because you're basically able to kind of wipe that duplicate off of the invoice when you reopen it in the legacy view, because the legacy view knows not to have duplicates, and so it just doesn't recognize it and removes it. Whereas the new one, that's a bug right now, that it it doesn't recognize them, but it just lets them sort of linger. And so it's causing these kind of unbalanced invoices. And I know there are a couple of people on this call that have dealt with that this year. And so that's what I found to be the easiest way to fix it, is to go into the legacy view and reopen, make any changes, save and close. And that has typically fixed the problem, with, like, I think there have been two exceptions where we weren't able to fix it that way. Has anybody run into that and was looking for a fix for it? Has anyone run into that and found a different fix for it? Right. Well, while we're kind of on the topic of stuff with funds, another bug, and we had a lot of updates to acquisitions in the past couple of upgrades. So there are still a couple of bugs that are being worked out, and I'm hoping that in the next upgrade, a lot of them will be addressed. But one of the bugs that I have come across recently that I'm still trying to figure out how to deal with, but I'm going to share it with you, is what I'm calling orphaned encumbrances. Let me see if I can pull one up to show you. So if I'm looking at a fund, and these actually, I think I fixed them all in here. So let me try a different one. Don't remember which fund this was in. Let's maybe look at last year. Well, I think I fixed all of the errors that I had found, but basically what we're finding is that, so if you're looking at a fund and you're in the debits tab, you have these hyperlinks to the line item, purchase order, and invoice. That's how I was able to get to that legacy view of the invoice before. I could click on either of these and I'm going to get into a purchase order or into the line item on the purchase order. What we're finding is that in some cases, when an encumbrance is first made, and I think when this is mostly happening is when we have a cancellation, and that cancellation is not coming from the vendor. When the vendor cancels it, this hasn't been an issue. But when the cancellation is being done manually by the library, it basically unlinks the encumbrance. And so you end up having this amount that's encumbered on the fund. So your encumbrance is set to yes, and there's an amount, but there's nothing linked over here. So then later, if that item is not removed from the purchase order, um, or if it was a situation where it was maybe delayed, but it was done manually by the library rather than by the vendor, and it later comes in and is marked as received, neither of those actions, neither removing it so that you can close out the purchase order, nor having it go from a state of delayed into a state of received, has any impact on the fund. And so the result is that the encumbrance stays on that fund and does not become a debit because that encumbrance is no longer linked to the originating line item. And so we've seen this at least twice, but it may be lingering out in some other people's funds. So that may be something to kind of take a look for, especially if you're seeing that unbalanced invoice issue, because this is how we discovered it, is there were a couple of cases where the invoices weren't balancing and changing it in the legacy view wasn't fixing it. And what turned out to be going on was that an item that was linked to that invoice had become an orphaned encumbrance. And so the invoice was viewing the encumbrance and including that in its total balance. But it was never turning that encumbrance to a debit. And so the amount that was originally owed on the invoice didn't match the amount that was paid when the invoice closed. It's a little bit complicated, but basically what it comes down to is that we've discovered that there are situations where the encumbrances are being unlinked from their originating line item. And when that happens, they never become debits because when the item is received, um, there's not, that item is no longer linked to its encumbrance line on the fund. So something to keep an eye out for if you have a chance and you kind of want to go through your funds. It's a good idea to kind of do that regularly anyway. Just keep an eye out to see if you have any of those where you basically have an encumbrance that is listed as yes as encumbered and has an origin amount, but does not have these things hyperlinked over here in the line item, purchase order, and invoice columns. That's going to be an orphaned encumbrance, and so you'll want to send that in to us so we can take a closer look at it. At this point, the only way that I've been able to fix it is to actually have Mobius go in and manually remove those, which I'm not thrilled to do because it kind of removes that originating record. And in most cases, these are for canceled items. So, from a financial perspective, it's not a huge deal, but from records for the library, that could be a problem. So, as you're finding those, if you find them, let me know. And my hope is that we can figure out the exact set of circumstances that are leading to this situation so I can submit a decent bug report. At this point, I haven't been able to do that because I don't have quite enough pieces of the puzzle to figure out exactly what's happening. But I'd like to submit a bug report. So if you do see some of those, please share them with me. Right, so those are a couple of things that I've been running across lately. They're definitely kind of in the weeds in the back end of administration. But is there anything that people are finding kind of on the front end that they've got questions about? I know we've got a couple of people here who are kind of new to their libraries acquisitions team. All right, let's see. Emily has asked, we've been having an issue with having the amount in encumbered funds on our PO, but not paid after we load our custom mark EAN records from Ingram. Okay, that may be related to some of the stuff I've been seeing lately. Do you happen to have a PO or an invoice handy that that's happening with? If not, you can send it to me off call. That's fine. And I'll look into it. But yeah, that might be related to this. And so it could have something to do with those mark records. Yeah, I definitely like to look into that. All right, here's a PO number. I'm gonna look at it live. I won't make any changes. Let me see if it's in dev. I doubt it will be. Um, yeah, it's not in dev. So I'm gonna look at it live, but I won't make any changes. All right, so we're seeing that encumbrances are coming through. Um, and do you have invoices on this yet? No, you don't have invoices yet. So Emily, typically you wouldn't see that it would still come in as $0 paid until you receive the item, until you mark the item received. Once you mark the item received, that should change. Are you seeing that that's not happening? It also, when you get invoiced for it, I think the invoice coming in should mark it paid. And this one does not have an invoice yet. Yeah, we don't have an invoice for any of these yet. I think that's right. And somebody else on the call can correct me if I'm wrong. I think that it doesn't get marked paid until it's invoiced, either invoiced or received. Um, does anybody know for sure what the workflow on that is?
That's correct. It won't show as paid. The encumbrance won't go away until the
Okay.
invoice is closed.
Okay.
Marking received does not affect those two things.
Okay. So marking received is irrelevant in this case. It's just the invoicing.
Yeah. And
Okay.
actually, I was going to say earlier, you mentioned the vendor cancellation would
Uh-huh.
update correctly, but the library cancellation wouldn't. I wonder if that's akin to the issue we had at our library where we were using a cancellation reason that was not correctly set up. I don't know if you remember that. We had one that just said library canceled and it didn't work. So they made a new one that said canceled by library and
That,
it set
yeah.
up differently and it works to update encumbrances and statuses.
Okay. I'm glad you reminded me of that because I'd forgotten about that. I'm gonna mess around with that and see if that helps um, sort of finalize that path between what's going on with these weird encumbrances.
Thanks, Samantha.
Yeah.
I, the invoice did generate yesterday for Emily for that PO, but I think Emily's having trouble uploading or picking up the files because we've got confirmation
Yeah.
files she's had trouble picking up and loading. So I don't know if that's something you can help her with, and that might be part of the issue.
We can take a look. I did see on the wider Evergreen acquisitions mailing list, there were some people saying that they were having some delays with invoice or with EDI messages in general from Ingram right now. So I wonder if that's
Hmm.
connected. Um, let's take a quick look at what's going on here. And this is a chance for people to see a little bit about how to check their messages if that's not something that they do often. Um, so I'm gonna come into news. All right, and so here is so this is the EDI account for news. So I went under administration, acquisitions administration, and then I scoped down to news. And so this is the EDI account that we have for Ingram for you. And if I just oh, never mind. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to do EDI messages. I do that far too often. So under the EDI account, I'm going to look for Ingram news. And let's see. Yeah, it looks like the most recent one that we have is an outgoing PO from the 21st. So yeah, we have not received that invoice on our end.
Does Evergreen, for lack of a better term, kind of sweep at certain times of the day for invoice or anything in the outgoing folder, or do you have to physically go check? And how does that work?
So we have, I think it goes it's either every hour on the 30-minute mark or it's every 30 minutes. Um, we pull in messages and send out messages. So it happens pretty regularly throughout the day. So being, 3 days since the last one, if you sent out a message yesterday, it should have come in by this point. Let me see. I'm going to clear that. And
It generated at 10:20 last night, but still, it's
yeah.
you would think it would have already brought in something.
There's no way for me to just kind of get a large snapshot of all of the Ingram accounts. I have to go account by account. Okay, so there are actually three, it looks like, that have been sent but have not been received then. Okay. Um,
It's two confirmations, one of those. I'm sorry.
okay. Um, I don't have the ability to check our SFTP folder. I have to go through our the vendor for our server for that, but I will reach out to him and see if there is I know that there's something going on with a delay with Ingram more widely, but I had not heard anything about that affecting anybody here until now, so I hadn't looked into it really deeply, but I will reach out and see if I can figure out what's going on.
Okay, and you don't think it's anything with our end?
I have no idea.
Yeah, okay. They're generating, so
Yeah.
if you find there's anything we need to look at, please let me know.
Yeah. I know that I'm still having trouble with that one message to the test server going out. But that's the only thing that I know of that's failing to leave from us and be received on your end. Everything else seems to be going through properly
Yeah.
through that channel. It's just the incoming messages that are the problem. Um, Now, this is one, so this is that Franklin one that we've been going back and forth on for about a week
Right.
now. And I tried it again. I've tried it twice today with some different, I keep going in and making changes and trying it again. And it continues to fail. So this is the error message that I'm getting with that. Let me see if I can make this wider. A little better. So I'm getting a put failed. This time I tried it. I threw in the SFTP into both both the host and the URL, that failed. I've tried multiple combinations of that and they've all failed. So I don't think that that's where the issue's coming through, but this is my continual error and I'm always getting something along this line that it's a
You
put
will
failure.
screenshot that for me. I may
Sure.
just send it over to IT just for kicks and giggles and see if they have any idea.
All right, I will send that to you. And I'm gonna, since I'm already gonna be reaching out to Mobius, I'll just throw this into that
Perfect.
message as well, and see if they can clear any of that up. Is anybody else on? I know we've got a couple of people that use Ingram and use EDI for Ingram on this call. Is anybody else having issues with any Ingram messages?
I'm not that I know of, but then I hardly ever look at the EDI messages.
Well, I mean, if stuff's coming in, then you're probably like, you don't need to look at the messages as long as stuff's coming in. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's, look, Christian says that Henderson's fine too. Those were the two locations I was thinking of specifically. Um, okay. I'll dig into that and we'll see what we can figure out what's going on here. Okay, so Emily, other than obviously the fact that you haven't gotten your invoices, does that kind of clear up the question about the paid status on the purchase orders? I know Noose has had some changes to their acquisitions staff recently, so if you need some, if you've got some things that need clarification, I'm happy to kind of work through any of that. Yeah. Okay, good. Um, yeah, that PO looked like it was in a good state. Like it didn't, nothing from what little I saw of it looked like it was, um, like there were gonna be any problems with it. Yeah, I think you're gonna be fine. Um, since everything seems to be going out correctly, I think you could go ahead and place and activate your orders. I think that's fine. Um, and we'll figure out why you're not getting your invoices, what's causing that. And so, yeah, so go ahead and place your orders, but you you may continue to experience delays with invoicing until we figure out what's going on there. Um, while I have kind of a hive mind available to me, um, why don't we take a look at this account that's been giving me trouble recently? So basically, I have been trying to set up a test account for EDI for Ingram, and my test orders are not going through, and I can't figure out where the issue is. And I don't know if maybe anybody who I know there are a couple of people on this call who have worked with the test server before for this. So I wonder if I pull up this EDI setup. And Emily, I don't know if you saw in the chat, but April responded to let you know that you've got text email confirmations coming your way. And so this is also a chance for the Ingram people to kind of see things from our view of the setup. So we already know that this is not going to work. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove that. so this is what I have in my provider setup here. Is anybody who is familiar with EDI setup see any glaring errors that could be causing the problem here?
Sorry, I haven't been into the provider stuff. How did you get the pop-out to show up?
I double clicked on it.
It's weird. It just takes me down. Like it doesn't come as a pop-up.
It used to do that for me. The pop-up is kind of new on my end, so I don't know why. I don't know why. That's
I'm just having trouble finding some of the same fields because it's showing up in a different order. And
Do
I
you know
don't,
if it's case sensitive as far as like incoming, if it matters if it's capital I or lowercase?
I have no idea. I know that in the ones that I have looked at, I feel like they are
yours
um
are identical to mine.
capitalized. Let
The
me
path and directory are identical to mine. Did you get all of the username and vendor sign code and everything? Did all that come from Ingram?
yes, I got that directly from
And
Ingram.
what part isn't working?
The messages aren't going through. I'm getting an error every time. All right, so Christian says that Henderson's is lowercase. I can try that.
You can try it, but ours is uppercase and it
Yours
works.
is uppercase. Yeah. Oh, you know what? So I'm looking at Polk's, and because this is the test. Oh, no, never mind. That's different. Um,
Well, I go back up though, because what did you take out of that FTP line?
I had so I originally had it as FTP, and then when it failed, I've tried a bunch of different things, but one of the things I did is because the regular Ingram server, we use an SFTP, so I had tried that SFTP for this, and that failed too. So I don't think that's the issue.
Oh, because the SFTP.
Yeah.
Do we have anybody having trouble with connecting SFTP so far?
We had some issues with it when we first switched over to SFTP, but those got ironed out.
Okay, good.
I don't know if it was 6 months ago or a year ago, but it was a while ago.
It was probably about a year ago.
Okay, yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, so Emily's outgoing has the EPR to it, and others that I'm looking at don't, but
It should be EPO.
EPO for the
Yeah, because it
okay.
Yeah, but there again, Pokes doesn't and it works fine. So it just seems weird.
Emily, I wonder if the EPR,
it might be keeping it from pulling in.
yeah, I'm gonna while we're here, I'm gonna go ahead and change that on yours and see if we get those messages pop in.
So did this one you're looking at work as a test account before, or has it not worked yet?
It has not worked at all. Hmm. Do you have any typos in the host URL?
Well, not that I can tell. And there's no spaces after the password or username.
Nope. No spaces on there. There is there was a space in the host, so I removed
Yeah.
that.
I wonder if that
Could
would be enough of a
be.
culprit.
Um, I've tried a couple. I'll try resending that and or resending that message, and we'll see if it goes through this time. I've made a couple changes. Um, we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
Yep, exactly. Um, okay, and Emily, I went ahead and made a change to yours as well to the outgoing. So we'll keep an eye over the course of the next hour and see if those messages come through, if those invoices come through. If they don't, I'm going to go back and change it back. It may turn out that we did need that change in the long run, but I just in case I don't want to forget that I'd made the change. So if we don't receive it today, I'm going to change it back.
I'll keep an eye on it too, because I'll be able to see when it goes.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. It's nice to have both sides of the process like in communication.
We need to do this more often.
All right. It feels like we're both in like our vacuums sometimes. And
I know.
all right. Is there anybody on here? I'm looking and I see a couple names I don't recognize. So is there anybody on here who is maybe brand new to acquisitions and has any basic questions? Because we've been talking about some pretty in the weeds topics for this, but I don't want to make anybody who feels brand new to it feel like they aren't welcome to ask their questions because we can look at the beginning stuff as well. I'd be happy to kind of take a look at kind of any point in the process. I've done some good troubleshooting, which is definitely needed. So that's been good. Well, if there are no other um in like specific questions, think we've got about 15 minutes left. Um I've kind of done the stuff that I wanted to talk about, but I hate to cut it off early if people do have questions, but I don't necessarily have any more planned content that we can go through. Um, oh, I did want to share this actually. And I don't think anybody from Onslow or Johnston are on this call, but they may watch the recording. So I know that there were a few libraries that were interested in doing the ASN shipments, receive shipment option, that we weren't able to because the way that it's set up, it couldn't work sort of branch by branch. Um, and it does look like that is in the works for a potential fix in the next upgrade. I don't want to promise that. I'm not 100% sure. And of course, last time they said we were getting ASN and then it didn't work for most people that wanted it. So, you know, I don't want to get too excited about it, but it does look like ASN may be an option. So for those of you who are newer to acquisitions or just were not aware of this feature, um, this basically allows when the vendor ships a box, they can put a barcode on that box. And when you receive the box, you can scan that barcode and it will receive each individual item within that box. Even if they're on different purchase orders, it'll go ahead and automatically mark them received as a result of just scanning the barcode on the box. And this is something that I think we have one library who's using it successfully right now. But it wasn't functional for those libraries that do kind of centralized ordering, but for multiple different accounts. So essentially, like, you know, if one library does all of the ordering, receives all the shipments, but those shipments are of items that are sort of being ordered by a bunch of different branches, that wasn't working. So it either needed to be a single library ordering items for just a single library, or it needed to be each individual branch was sort of managing their own acquisitions. So that wasn't working for the majority of our libraries because most of our libraries don't do it that way. It does look like there's, fingers crossed, a potential that that's going to be fixed. So those of you who were interested in using it before but couldn't get it to work, we may be able to make that work for you moving into the next upgrade. Those of you who were not familiar with it but who are intrigued by the idea, let me know if that's something you'd like to set up. Most of the setup actually happens with your vendor. There's not really much that we have to do on our end, but we're happy to work with you on that if that's something you want to try after the next upgrade. So just have it on your radar.
You
Otherwise,
have
oh, sorry.
contact Samantha if we wanted to see if Ingram can develop that on
You
our
can
end.
certainly start by contacting me. I think
Okay,
it was developed for Evergreen specifically with Baker and Taylor in mind. And so that was the only vendor that it worked with originally. But I think but yeah, if that is something that you would like to be able to provide for Evergreen customers, let me know. And then it'll probably have to go out to the wider development community from
right.
there. But that would be a good starting point.
I know we do it with Polaris, and that's the only one that I'm aware of. I will get with our team and see what they might need to start developing that, and then we can put people in contact together.
Yeah, I think you know, when it works, it's really nice. So
Right.
people,
Mhm. Okay, cool. Thanks.
yeah. Um, Otherwise, in terms of the next upgrade, there's not a lot on the docket for acquisitions. Finally, the last couple upgrades have been very acquisitions heavy. Um, which is nice to get kind of a refresh, but also it comes with new bugs and things like that. So it'll be nice to not have to deal with that this year. But there are some bug fixes on the way. So I'll be doing my upgrade webinar in probably October. And so I'll go through the details of what bugs are being fixed then. But I think you can go ahead and look at the release notes now if anybody's kind of interested in digging through those. So we're going to be going to 3.15, and I think we'll probably be getting that up on the next server sometime over the course of the next month or so. I'll put this link in the chat. So feel free to kind of look through this if you're interested. Like I said, acquisitions for the most part, it's small things, it's, you know, bug fixes and stuff like that, but there are a couple things coming through. So worth keeping an eye on. And obviously, I know most of the people on this call do other things outside of acquisition, so there are probably some things in here that'll affect you in other ways as well. And because we're going from 313 to 315, you might want to take a look at the 314 notes as well, because anything in 14 will be coming along for the ride when we go up to 15. So yeah, I don't have anything specific on that outside of ASN just yet, but I'll definitely be sharing that as I have had a chance to kind of play around with it once we have it up on our next server and kind of see what it actually looks like in practice. All right, well, we have about 10 minutes left, so I'll just do a final call if there are any questions, anything that's been causing issues or that you're curious about. And then otherwise we'll wrap up.
I'll just mention briefly in case others haven't heard about it. I saw a green listserv recently that Amazon is still now providing free mark records for books, which is cool for me. We don't do a lot of ordering from Amazon, but when we have, we've never had on order records in the system for people to place holds on, and now we do that, albeit they're very brief records. But they matched up nicely with some of the ones that were in Cardinal. So merch on Best Match definitely still works. It's a little annoying. It's only physical books because, you know, we also order DVDs and stuff through Amazon. Sometimes they don't have anything for that yet, but it was nice to have a few items that we could have on order. And it was really, really easy. Like they have a link for Amazon business books for libraries that I just bookmarked and go to that anytime we've placed an order.
That's kind of huge. That's awesome. I might attempt to get some documentation together for that. So I might reach out to you for some details about it when I get around to putting that together. All right, if there are no more questions for me, one last plug also, if anybody has any questions for Ingram, this might be a good opportunity. Not to put April on the spot, but
Speak now, forever hold your peace. No emails allowed. Kidding.
Contrary, April, I know where to find you. I have your email.
I know, I recognized your name, like I know her.
well, I really appreciate everyone being here. I especially appreciate that the folks from Ingram were able to be here. I think it was really nice to be able to sort of connect two sides of things. And I appreciate the kind of, collaborative efforts that went into some troubleshooting today. That's great. If after this meeting ends, you realize you did have a question that you forgot to ask or uh, didn't feel comfortable asking the full group, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to answer things off the call or by email. And otherwise, hopefully acquisitions is going relatively smoothly. I haven't been getting many tickets for it lately, so that's great, but makes me a little nervous. So yeah, I will let everybody have a few minutes back in their day, but I really appreciate you being here today.